Today I wanted to go through some of the questions, or one of the questions we get a little bit is what cameras we use out with doing our shooting videos. So what we actually use and what we've found worked for us. I'll qualify that just like our shooting, we're not professionals, we're not professional videographers, we just do what we do, it works for us, and over time we've come up with stuff that works for us. I've always had Canon cameras, well for the last 20 years I've had Canon cameras, and we've done other videos, we do other bits and pieces with that sort of stuff, and so we've gone with what works inside that scheme of things. We've tried other things, this is what we've come up with. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it, I'm sure there are professionals and far more experienced amateurs that know more than us, but I still want to show you what we use. To start with, what we are using in our long range stuff, target wise I should say, we use largely for our long range stuff, we use 3mm steel, which shows us decently the impact side of things, which I've been through before, but that's the reason we use that, and we don't use heavy hard steel out here because we want to see things easy through the spotting scope, but it also lets you see through the long range camera. At target, once again, we have essentially, this is just Bisalloy frame that's set up, which runs a little GoPro. It's one of the first of the heroes, so it's I've forgotten how many years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, and we have GoPro, very ready camera, and we use it out here, not shooting super high resolution footage, but does its job well for what we have out at this range. With that we can put in a 32 or a 64 meg card, and we can actually get, with a charged battery, run up to around 2 hours of actual being out here. We obviously don't need 2 hours of footage, but we do need to be able to set up out here and then go and do all the other things, from put up a range flag to set up other bits and pieces with other targets, or get up to where we're going, deal with what we're dealing with, and make sure we get our shots. We want decent footage out here, and we want to make sure the cameras are going to last. They're not going to tell us anything, we're too far away. Other than that, this little case here has what we use in it. We used to use a lot, we have this old JVC Handycam, which is a hard disk unit. The Vario, whatever you say, does quite well, a little bit harder in the way of the software, the way it records footage, so it's not so easy to check. You've actually got to put it on a proper viewer or view it in other ways, but still does a very good job. It came with a little windsock on the mic, which is what we still use and works very well, but it's probably the least used of the cameras now. For our long range stuff, we've found that the Canon Powershot, this one here is the SX60HS. We've run from, I think it was the 45HS, the 50HS, and now we've got a 60HS. We update this camera probably every couple of years. It's getting a little bit more power in it, but we use the camera for other things as well. We use this in our mechanical workshop, we use it for videos and photographs, so the old one is always going to do that, the new one does the long range stuff. The reason we use this is that essentially last reason we updated is this does take an external mic. A lot of this sort of camera doesn't take one, this does. So I have another external mic with a windsock on it, which you can put on here, and that is what most of our audio comes from. It'll sit there where Sam is zoomed in. Now this has up to 220 or 240
260
zoom, or 260, there's the cameraman, 260 zoom, which is essentially a 65 by optical zoom I should say, and then a 4 times digital zoom. So it's not quite as high quality in the way of its capturing, but it does a reasonable job. The other feature, and the reason I like that, what we use tripod wise. This is a tripod, Manfrotto Tripod, that has a gear head on it, which lets us adjust and fine tune things on the angle side of things. But this is set up where this long range camera simply clicks on top, nice and easy to set up. Obviously we have the mic on it when we do that, and you can adjust it, zoom in, it holds itself there. Now we tried different forms of these gear heads. All of them, the way we do it is they're set up by Sam, the spotter, so she can make sure they stay in there, they're zoomed in the right distance, they're on target. But the feature that really we found nice about this is one of the things that we try and do in verifying shots. We obviously show our distance. We don't show that we generally use GPS to find it. We use Google to find where we're going. We verify it with the iPhone, but so that everyone can see it. It's nice and clean and simple to see. But we actually set them up a lot with a Garmin product. We do it with Google Maps. We make sure our range is worked out in various forms so we know we're right. We use the iPhone so people can see it, nice and clear and easy to see. But one of the other features I try and work on is that we're verifying the shot in other forms. One of them is that this, because it's back with Sam, it's basically in getting a certain amount of a whack from the muzzle blast that will actually happen, or the percussion of through the air when you shoot, is that these are just a little bit flexible. And if you look at our videos, you'll see the majority of them, when the gun goes bang, the camera flinches. It's just a little flinch. It'll always come back to the same place, well, generally comes back to the same place, with a little flinch, which is a verification of, visual verification of when the actual shot hit. So then you can also see a real time of flight. So anyone with a calculator and an app can verify our distance via that. You obviously have different bullet speeds and all the rest of it, but you still get an idea. 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, you can actually see it. And it's not just verified by the sound, which you could cut in different places if you're messing with audio and that side of things. We don't, but you could do. But the flinch in the camera is then timing before you see the hit in the camera. So you can see the whole thing. Works really nicely, especially when you've got a nice dust spike. You can actually see and time for yourself, work it out for yourself. I actually use that myself. I'll actually look at my footage and it verifies what my apps are saying in the way of real time. I can actually do that, go to my clock and really count from the whack, which is instantaneous, to the actual dust spike or the target strike, and actually get a real time out of it. Something we've found, with all the different motor heads we've used, it works really nicely, and as like I said, it's part of how we verify things. The other side of things that we have in our little bag here, and other guns that we use, we have inside here, there's 3 of these tripods. They work really nicely. They're set up with simple releases on them. The camera that Sam is using right now is another one of these. So it's another little Powershot. It has good zoom on it. We don't really use it for the zoom. It doesn't have a mic ability, so we don't tend to use the sounds of these because they'll tend to have too much wind noise and that side of things. But as you see, set up my little case, very nice and easy to use. They're small, they don't take up a lot of room. Screw on one of these buttons, whack it on here, set it all up. This is a swivel head, not so easy to get fine-tuned at really long range, but locks up nice and easy. And these cameras, I've found good image, they work nicely, and I can set them around the place without too much fuss, with a decent field of view, but not like a GoPro, which really has a very wide angle lens. These you can actually set up at a decent distance, whether it's 5 feet or it's 50 feet. These actually work really well for that side of things. We also use this one now for that sort of job. Bit of handheld stuff, but it does that job as well. And the rest of it you see inside here, I have 2 of those, just the Hero in the way of the GoPro. There's an earlier version of the GoPro as well. We don't often use it, but it's a backup side of things. And then we have a couple of later GoPros, which we use. This one here is the Hero 3 in a black. This one is the one I generally use when we got close up to us. It's got good audio. It's the setup in this little frame. It's got good audio. It's another backup for the audio side of things, and I'll tend to set it up close to me for actually recording stuff when we've got cameras all over the place. It's one of the jobs it has. And we also have the Hero 3 Plus, big battery pack on the back of it. This one can then use that battery pack that I've got on there is actually able to charge other things if we're getting to the place where we're out in the bush and we can't do anything on that score. But it also is one we use sometimes close-ups on Sam, but we can also use this one out in the field. So this is the one we'll tend to leave out there for if you want to see a skyline shot, a time-lapse shot, that sort of stuff. This one will leave out, and it could be running for 4 hours set up like it is. Run a big 64 card in it, and then set up the right frame rate so you can actually make sure you fit it all on there. But that is really what our setup is. We've used other cameras over time. You'll see through here we have spare batteries for everything set up in here. So there's batteries, there's actually a charger in here, we run cables in here. We run the basics of our system with all our screw-on mounts so we can set things up. And in our bags. As I said, we have from mini tripods to what have we got? Clamp-on systems. So there's this sort of thing which we can clamp on to benches and bits and pieces. So a few bits and pieces in our cameras, but this is really what our systems come down to. We have a couple of large cameras that we sometimes use in the Canon 600D, which is very good for fine footage in the handheld stuff. But to be truthful, of the stuff we do at the level we're at the moment, with no bankroll funding us and getting a proper cameraman, not that my cameraman's not the best in the world, but in the way of someone else that means that you would generally only see one of us if there's a handheld camera involved, because there's only the two of us ever around here. But this is the system we use and it works really nicely. So for those questions, I will put on the details of what the cameras actually are in the links in the comments below, or the questions, the info below. But this is what we carry. I should say, I didn't mention that, we carry in essentially generally 2 or 3 or 4 extra cards for if I haven't done my job properly, or the cards failed. And what I mean by that is, one of my jobs is always making sure all the cards are cleared, all the cameras are charged, everything's ready to go. But it's like most things, occasionally you'll stuff up and you need a backup plan, whether it's batteries or cards or something or other, to make sure you're still alive and going. When we go out to shoot, we're on limited time always, and we're always trying to make sure we provide the best that we can for you, our audience. Anyway, I hope that's of some help to some of those questions, and at least of some interest to some. Cheers, and we'll catch you next time.